Hey everyone, welcome to the Dram Amateur Podcast, your go-to show for everything bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, mezcal, and beyond. I'm your host, Jason. Join me as I journey and explore the world of alcoholic spirits. Let's get started. All right, welcome back to the Dram Amateur Podcast, where we dive into the stories, spirits, and sips behind whiskey, bourbon, rum, tequila, and mezcal. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm glad to have you here for another pour of a great conversation. Follow me on Instagram, X, and Threads at Dram_Amateur, and on Facebook at the Dram Amateur Podcast. Whether you're a seasoned sipper or just getting started, this is your place to sip, learn, and share. So grab a glass, get comfy, and let's kick off another great episode. And with that said, I have a full house tonight, which I am super stoked about. First of all, let me introduce, I have a co-host tonight, which is a luxury in my job here, being a solo podcaster. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast, the ever famous, the High Proof Hikes, the Blind Bonanza partnership that we did the podcast on. Welcome back, John, also known as Mr. Given to the podcast. Thank you, John, for joining and being a host tonight. I appreciate it.
You need to get one of those boards with the buttons that you press that does the sounds.
That's in the mix, right? I got to get to that point. It's getting there. But thanks for joining, man. I appreciate you having you back on. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this with me.
Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. And John is here tonight because he helped to get a special guest on the podcast tonight that I am super stoked about. And let me introduce this gentleman. So today's guest traded courtrooms for copper stills, and he's now behind one of the fastest growing craft tequila brands in the game. We are joined by McCauley Williams, founder and CEO of Morningside Brands and the creator of Alma del Jaguar, a purpose-driven tequila making serious waves. Their high-proof Blanco just took home double gold, and the Blanco won gold at the Agavo Spirit Awards. Not bad for a newcomer, right? We get into the heart of the brand, the mission to protect wild jaguars, and what it takes to build soulful spirits company where Morningside's headed next. So grab yourself a pour, preferably something award-winning like Alma del Jaguar Tequila, and let's get into it. McCauley, thank you so much for joining the podcast tonight. Certainly appreciate it. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, we got a ton of questions. I did a lot of homework on this because I didn't want to be the guy that asked you the same questions that other podcasts have asked. So I'm going to dive maybe a little deeper into some of the areas and get some insights from you because I'm really inspired about your journey to where you're at today, what you're doing with the Alma del Jaguar brand as well, and love to know a little bit about where you're going with the brand and then also Morningside as well.
Cool, let's do it, man. I'm sipping on a little bit of our new Añejo single barrel series right now.
Very cool. Yeah, I just saw a post on Instagram about that I think a store out in Charleston had a drop of that here just recently.
7 star.
7 star?
Chris at 7 star is the man.
That's awesome. That's great. And John, what are you sipping on tonight? I think you got a little something different in your glass. What do you got?
I have the pick where I met Blaine from Carriage Hill Liquors, but I also have ready to go the Nocturna. This is the fall 2024, and I have a glass ready to go, which I haven't poured yet, but I will now that you mentioned it, because I'm never one to miss out on sipping some good spirits, which happen to be tequila this time, and having a good time.
You got to, guys. Yeah. That fall batch is particularly badass.
Yeah.
I just caught a whiff of it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm sipping on the spring batch. So this was my 2024 tequila of the year. This thing is absolutely fantastic. I love this. I was lucky enough to stumble on a couple bottles of the fall batch here a couple weeks ago up in Chattanooga when I was up on a trip up there, and I bought every single bottle they had on the shelf. So I'm a proud owner of a couple of those now. So really love what you're doing with the brand, McCauley. I think it's great. There's a lot of context behind that. So let me get started by just starting with your origin origins and personal journey. So before we jump into the brand, I want to rewind a little bit because I was really inspired with learning a little bit about your past. So you began as a mergers and acquisition attorney, which, I mean, that's pretty badass in itself. What sparked your spirits to or what sparked your transition from law into spirits? Like, was that something you were planning on doing all the time, or was it just something you were passionate about and wanted to move into?
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I was the kid that sold candy out of his locker in the fourth grade and got busted by the principal. He thought I'd only have like, $5 or $10, and I probably had $500 in my locker because I've been slinging Airheads and Warheads and all the hot candies of the 90s. And while I was practicing law, I had a craft beer vending business where we'd buy the rights to vend at festivals and concerts, mostly outdoors. That's what kind of got me into the alcoholic space as a alcoholic beverage space, from a business perspective. We sold that business. And how I got into the distilled spirits business was, so I was practicing law at a firm in Memphis called Baker Donaldson, doing corporate law, mergers and acquisitions, securities. And for the general scope is I did business deals, not litigation. And I did that because I wanted to figure out how to not to practice law. So I figured, go to the firm, put in my time on the corporate side, and that could be my back door into business. Maybe I find a client to go in-house with. Maybe I find somebody to go into business with. You just never know. But I figured that would be a better out than being a litigator. Because, again, my goal was to become an entrepreneur, get into business. My father was an attorney and kind of steered me on that path under the premise it would open more doors and it would close, and he's exactly right. And it's a great educational background for almost any business. A little different than business school, though. But anyways, I had this beer business that we had just sold. My wife now, we were dating at the time. This was back in 2015, 16. Had a roommate, and her roommate's boyfriend, Alexander, started a vodka distillery here in Memphis. It was going to be the next big thing. It was called Pyramid Vodka. And for a number of different reasons, it failed. Mostly due to production issues and just they were young, new to the space, didn't really understand what they were doing. It had a lot of hype, a lot of potential. It failed. He came to me wanting to liquidate that business. He came to me because our girlfriends lived together. We were childhood friends. We went to high school together and still remain really close buddies today. But because of the beer thing, I knew about something about alcohol, and I'm a corporate attorney, and I'm a friend, so I could provide advice. And I helped liquidate that business for them. And through that process, it quickly turned into not charging for anything because they're out of money, and just doing this as a friend. And we, spent the night together a lot because our girlfriends lived together, so we'd spend the night in our respective rooms with our girlfriends, and then wake up, have coffee, and I talk about it. And it just became this passion project. And with my entrepreneurial kind of mindset and my beer vending space, I just kept thinking, man, what an opportunity here. First question was like, why vodka, man? We live in Memphis. We're in Tennessee. It's whiskey country. And it's like, well, vodka is the largest category. Tito's had been this breakout success. Seemed to be an opportunity to make Tennessee vodka instead of Texas vodka. Maybe a good idea. I don't know. But I kept thinking, whiskey's getting really popular. Again, this is 2015, 2016. We're in Tennessee. Why not do whiskey? And anyways, after about an 18-month liquidation process, I put together a business plan to form the business out of liquidation into a whiskey distillery. Pitched that to several of my clients and one of my mentors at the law firm, and decided to hire Alexander back as our head of operations. We raised some money, bought it out of liquidation, and I quit my job at the law firm to go run this new whiskey operation, and that's now Blue Note Bourbon is the name of the company. And we did that from 2017 until January 7th, 2022 when I left, and now I'm doing Morningside Brands. So I had partners before. The bourbon brand has been great. I decided I don't really like working with partners. I'd rather do my own thing. And frankly, they fired me. I got fired and voted out of the company I started. So
See,
Wow.
that's gotta be rough. Yeah, that's gotta be tough.
good business lesson, and obviously I was really frustrated at the time. It's been 3 years and almost 3.5 years now. I'm still one of the larger stockholders of the company, so if they ever do make it big, I'll get to ride that appreciation up. So definitely rooting for them. But yeah, of course, I was not happy at all when it kind of all went down, and there was a lot of frustrations. But with time, that'll heal all wounds, and it provides another level of perspective. And what it's really done is afforded me the opportunity to realize that those guys, while my former partners and I don't get along necessarily, they did give me a great opportunity to chase my dream of being an entrepreneur. And we got to build something special together. And even though it was not necessarily always good, I got an amazing business education in it, because part of business is about learning how to avoid the pitfalls of what can go wrong with potential partners, investors, and business strategies. And that was my first real big-time company with millions of dollars of capital behind it, and got to learn invaluable lessons of what it means to run a company. And you can't learn that from reading books. You can learn a lot in books, but you can't learn that in business school. It takes doing it. So there's a silver lining to it. They afforded me a world-class business education, for which today I'm blessed to have.
Love that perspective. Love that attitude.
Yep. Well, yeah, definitely. And now you have the brand Alma del Jaguar, right? And honestly, I got introduced to this brand about a year ago, and I want to tell you, if I remember right, I used to travel to Mexico City, and I believe I saw the brand around in Mexico City a little bit too. But I mean, everything about the bottle, the transparency, the labeling, the glass, the cork, I mean, everything about any of these bottles is absolutely unique and special. And I think that's what helps to draw people into it, right? And when you start to then do a deeper dive into the brand itself and everything you have going on, there's a lot more to it. It's not just a tequila. There's more to that brand. So walk us through the process of building this brand from scratch, right? How long did that take? How did the idea from the bottle get there? How did the idea from bottle to shelf to sourcing the tequila to working with the distiller? What does that all look like from your experience?
Well, I mentioned that I got fired and forced out of my company. So I didn't have any money. I didn't get my shares bought out. I didn't get a severance. Just thanks for your service. See you never kind of thing. And that left a pretty bad taste in my mouth at the time, at least, of like the animosity, all that stuff aside. It left like the bad taste in my mouth of like, I wanted to prove to the world, my friends, the audience that's probably not even paying attention, that doesn't even maybe exist, that it was me the whole time, that it was my, it was me that did everything that got it to the point of where it was. Obviously, we had a team, but I was the driving force behind it. So I knew I wanted to do another brand, partially to prove to that audience that may not exist or may not be paying attention, and to myself, but then also just like, there is the component of to myself. It's like, I know I'm good at this, and I know if we're successful, I can make a good career out of this. So I really want to do another brand. There was no question about that. I'm not going to get out of the industry. I'm going to do another brand. I found myself drinking a lot more tequila. My wife and her girlfriends were drinking a lot of tequila. My former partners claimed I had a non-compete in bourbon. That's debatable. If it was enforceable, it has since lapsed. A big argument there is, as an attorney, I don't think it's legal to have a non-compete. We won't go into that. But, hey, am I going to get into this pissing match over doing another bourbon brand? It didn't seem to be wise. And all the data in the world pointed to tequila was the next big thing, and it already was in 2022, really established as the next wave of growth in craft spirits. So the data and my own personal consumption, my wife and friends' consumption had me looking really hard at it, along with this kind of business caveat. And I was like, all right, I'm going to explore doing a tequila brand. Reached out to connections in the industry. Who knows somebody in Mexico with distillery connections to find a manufacturer. Got plugged in to a number of different groups. A lot of the bourbon guys knew something, but not really. So it became clear I needed to find my own kind of end to the tequila space. And then a light bulb went off as I'm thinking about Mexico and tequila. I'm like, well, my uncle has been living in Mexico my whole life, or most of my life, studying Jaguars. And he started a group called the Northern Jaguar Project. And I was like, man, this would be awesome to reconnect with him. So initially it was like, hey, I'm just going to invite my uncle to meet me in Guadalajara, and we're going to go out and visit distilleries together. He's fluent in Spanish. This affords me a great opportunity to reconnect with him. I'm only proficient in Spanish. And then kind of through those early conversations, the light bulb went off of like, well, what if we went a step further? So we started talking more about where the Jaguar Reserve was, fundraising, brand awareness for the reserve, and the mission and all that. And what he started is the Northern Jaguar Project and Reserve, and it's the largest privately managed wildlife refuge in Mexico. They study, as the name suggests, jaguars in the northernmost range. One of their biggest struggles, though, is getting awareness to the cause that there are indeed jaguars in Mexico, and there are indeed jaguars that are native to the U.S. And then they also struggle with raising money. And I started thinking, man, every brand needs a story. Every brand needs a reason to exist, other than just my burning passion to prove to the world I can do another brand. And I started saying, would you be open to the idea if we made the brand really all about your life's work, about jaguar conservation? And I was kind of nervous asking him at first. I didn't think he'd like it. I figured he'd say, hey, you stay in your lane, and I'll stay in mine. But he said, no, that would be absolutely amazing, because he saw the potential of raising awareness for his cause. And I said, well, I want to make it more than just about the name and tying that in. I want there to be a give back component. And, what if we make it really all about the Jaguar Reserve and jaguar conservation as a whole? And that was the kind of the genesis of Alma del Jaguar, or if you don't speak Spanish, we like to say just call it Jaguar. Jaguar Tequila is fine too, because a lot of people don't know what we're saying when we say Jaguar. Like, what are you saying? It's just Jaguar, spelled the same way in Spanish and English. And so that was the genesis of the brand. And then with that kind of backdrop, if the brand's going to be all about environmental conservation, jaguar conservation, we need to find a producer that embodies that ethos in their production practices, meaning we need to find a producer that is environmentally friendly and stewards of the land, not a big commercial operation harming the environment. That wouldn't make any sense. So with that perspective, we're going into this very different than most people. Most people starting a brand are going to be solely focused on COGS, cost of goods sold, meaning who can produce the best quality relative to the cheapest price. And it's going to be all about that, and volume negotiations and all that. That was not our mindset. So we're coming into it totally different. At the time, I didn't even know that additive-free tequila, never heard that term, never knew anything about it. I only knew a couple of good brands. I knew about G4, I knew about Fortaleza, but I didn't know that they were any better than the rest. I just thought they were pretty good when I tried them. So I was literally coming in entirely blind to the tequila world. Other than that, I knew how to build a spirits brand. I understood U.S. distribution. I understand how to build a brand. And I'm proficient in Spanish. My uncle's from Mexico, has been living in Mexico for 30 years. And that's the backdrop. So going in almost totally blind. And we met with about 30-something different distilleries, a few of them online only, and we just kind of immediately ruled them out. And then we physically visited about 25 different distilleries.
Wow.
And through that, I started to realize, man, there is a wild variance in the product quality that these people are putting out. In bourbon, that's not the case. In bourbon, the biggest distilleries oftentimes make the highest quality bourbon. And of the big players, there's a much tighter distribution on a bell curve of the quality ranges. It's all in the same range. In tequila, that bell curve of quality and flavor profile is much more dramatic, meaning the standard deviations away from the median mean and all that are going to be way further. So there's just way more variety going on in terms of quality and operations. And it's the exact opposite in tequila. Of the biggest tequila distilleries often put out the worst juice. in bourbon, if you go to a really small craft bourbon distillery and they're actually distilling their bourbon, there's a chance it's terrible. I mean, the likelihood is it's terrible. There's very few actually craft distilleries that convert grain into distillate that are even palatable. So that's the exact opposite, though, in tequila, where the smaller the producer, typically the much higher quality. And that's where tequila, when you get right down into it, is actually more similar in terms of how it's made to wine than it is to whiskey. And that was a whole revelation that I discovered on my first trip. I can keep rambling. I'm gonna stop there.
Keep going. No, this is interesting. Like I mean, unless John, you have a question. No, this is interesting as hell. This is what I want to hear behind all that. You know?
Yeah. So through that, though, we met with a bunch of folks, and man, I knew that Fortaleza, Los Abuelos, they weren't taking on clients. They only make one brand. We couldn't get a hold of Felipe at El Pandillo. And then I heard from multiple people that Chava at the time at Cascawin wasn't taking on more brands. So I'm like, well, those are the only 3 good distilleries I'm aware of, because I just didn't know anything about the space. So we start meeting with as many people as we can get meetings with, and it was at a random lunch in Guadalajara at a cantina called Desistres, where we were introduced to Viva Mexico tequila. And it's a great, cool canteen. If you're ever in Guadalajara, check it out. It's owned by the Quazitils. They're an amazing family. But we're looking at, I was like, man, like, we start telling them kind of what we're up to after a few drinks, start opening up. And, like, here's the list of where we've been. Like, yeah, none of these people really make very good tequila. And then I was like, well, how do I find somebody that can make tequila like Los Abuelos, like G4, like Cascawin? They said, man, there's not many, but we know of the Vivancos at Viva Mexico at 1414. They make really amazing tequila. Try it. And I got online, looked it up. I'm like, oh, I've heard of Siembra Azul, because I've been doing more research. And then I immediately recognized Arte Nam 1414, because that was a brand I'd really knew just from seeing it out in the wild. Didn't have it necessarily in my head going into the trip, but I was like, okay, that's a good product. Can you get me a meeting there? And they said, yeah, maybe. We sort of know somebody there. And then, anyways, we had lunch and left and didn't think anything of it. We exchanged numbers. A couple days later, I get a WhatsApp message saying, Mr. Vivanco will meet you at 8 a.m. at the distillery tomorrow. And at the time, I was in the town of Tequila, and it was like 2 a.m.
Oh,
and we were hosting people at our Airbnb from a distillery we've been out with, and we're drunk. And it was 2 a.m. And, I'm like, oh, my God, how is it this late? And I'm just amazed that I saw the message come in. And Rick, my uncle, was older. He was already long since asleep. I was like, hey, guys, we got to wrap this party up. Everybody out. I went up and woke my uncle up. I was like, we have to leave like right now, because I did that Google mapped it. And I was like, oh, fuck, it's a long way away. It's like 4.5 hours. And it's like, it's already 2. So I'm like, if we stop and get coffee and gas, we need to leave now. So we packed up and left. And I slept sort of in the car. And all I had was coffee from an OXXO going into it. And by the time we're there, I'm now like full hangover, feel like ass. I've been up all night at a distillery. I'm sort of like, I don't really know why we're here. I know they make a couple of good products, but this probably isn't going to work out. No one seemed that friendly when they let us in. Mr. Ivanka seemed somewhat like, who the hell are these gringos? Why are they here? Why did I take the This guy looks like he's about to puke. His uncle is old. Like, what is this? And then, anyways, then it really, the day turned around after we started telling him about what the project was all about. He loved it. And everything about that meeting was just so different than any distillery we went to. It was all about family legacy, all about caring for the land. And the first place he took us was out into the fields, not into some boardroom to talk price and what they could do. Out into the fields. And he starts talking about how the process all starts with the land and the soil and taking care of the agave, and how long the ranch has been in his family, and the importance of that legacy, and how many generations they've been growing agave. And then we went on a tour, and then we just sat outside at this portico. You may have seen it, or if you've been there, you may have seen it on social media. It's just, a roof, and it's open on 3 sides. It's just a portico with a big table, and that's where you sit and drink tequila and talk shop. And we, after doing the tour of the facility and seeing the production, we just sat there and drank tequila for like 6 to 8 hours.
Wow.
So I'm now drunk again, haven't eaten anything.
Again.
And which felt great. I'm now, at least I don't feel like shit anymore. But, I'm like, shit, now it's getting like later in the afternoon. I was like, do we ever eat anything around here? Like, what's going on? But we didn't talk about business. We didn't talk about, other than like the concept of the brand and like what that could be in me and for tequila and like for the reserve and for the mission. But we didn't talk business in the sense of like going over price or volume or can you even make this for us? He never even like agreed to do it or anything. And then we left drunk and had like a late lunch and then immediately went to our hotel and fell asleep, just totally exhausted. But we continued our journey for a few days, meeting with some more distilleries, some really cool spots. But we kept talking like in the car in between meetings and stuff. Man, like Sergio Vivanco was the absolute man. I don't think we even met Sergio Cruz on that first trip. It was just Mr. Vivanco the whole time, which is unique. Most people start with Sergio Cruz. Yeah, I had no idea who Sergio Cruz was. Never heard of him. And we just kept talking about how amazing that experience was. And then like afterwards, like that's definitely the group we need to look into going with. So before I left to fly home, I was like, let's schedule a call and like talk next steps of how this works. And the rest is history.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, see, I love stories like that.
I'm trying to emphasize how happenstance it was and how like unplanned.
Yeah.
No, that is the epitome of meant to be. That whole story is just, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
I would have been passed out at 2
that
a.m.
way.
Yeah, that's incredible.
What's really crazy about that story is, so I say my uncle helped found the Northern Jaguar Reserve and the Northern Jaguar Project. That all started with him becoming a wildlife photographer back in the early 90s. And the craziest thing of all, so at first he moved out west to Driggs, Idaho to photograph kind of the Rockies, grizzly bear, wolves, elk, moose, that kind of wildlife, which is totally epic in its own right. But the first photograph he took on his first ever professional camera was here in Memphis, and it was of a jaguar at the zoo. And it took years later for him to realize that, and so that was indicative of what was to come later. And then it's kind of crazy serendipity how it all weaves together to come here.
Yeah. You want me to blow your mind?
What's up,
bro? I sold airheads in high school. Let me ask you though. I took a note. Let me ask you. Did you sell slice pops?
I just sold airheads and warheads, man.
Bro, slice pops, I could not keep them things in stock. But we're opposites because I ain't started a business. You obviously have that drive. I don't have that drive. But as soon as you said you sold candy, I'm like, I've never met anybody else that sold candy in school. You're the only other person I've ever met that done that.
I think it was like banned. I don't think you're allowed to have candy or whatever. And
so, let me tell you real quick. So I sold candy. Everybody knew I'd done it. The teachers knew I'd done it. So I'm slinging. I'm wheeling and dealing, right? I'm like, what you got? What you want? How much money you got? I'm doing that thing. The guy tells me I kept it in one of those zip up, notebooks, the 5-star zip ups, and I would go to my locker and restock. The guy tells me, he goes, I want everything. And I'm like, you ain't got enough money. And as I turned around, I noticed the gray beard. So I give him the whole thing. I said, I ain't even going to charge. It's on the house. So, of course, he took me to the principal. And this was in 9th grade. And at the high school I was at, 9th grade had its own vice principal just for 9th grade. Took me in there to her. She done her whole riot act, tried to scare me, blah, 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 And she dumped everything out in the bottom drawer. I don't know how long later it was, but later on I got in trouble for something else. And she had the audacity to offer me some of my own candy from her drawer.
She charged
Did she charge me for it?
Yeah, if she charged you for it, that would be really ballsy.
No, she didn't charge me for it, but she did offer. And I said, now, that's my own candy, Miss Mathis. Yeah, her name was Elaine Mathis. I'll put it out there for the whole world.
Dear Elaine, listen to this podcast.
Yes.
So let me ask some questions. I want to lean into some of what you talked about in that story around the cultural aspect, and let's even talk about some of like the impact and legacy from that, right, and the conservation mission that you guys talked about. Let's talk about first the cultural side. been to Mexico several times for work, Mexico City, not out to anywhere else. But I in my time there, 10 times now, I learned more and more about the cultural importance of not only tequila, but food, family, everything else about the Mexican culture. And I think it's really cool. With tequila is a deeply cultural spirit, right? If you look at tequila, mezcal, anything in that space, very cultural. How are you balancing authenticity and innovation in like a competitive and sometimes commodified space? So how are you focusing on that and not losing sight of that with the brand?
A lot to unpack in that one. So coming from the bourbon space, peak bourbon boom, the consumer was very well educated and demanding transparency in everything. So I knew that coming in that we needed to be really transparent of how we're making this, who our production partners are. And that's what helped inspire, the production notes panel on our package of showing exactly step by step the key things that any tequila drinker is going to want to know. Now, serious drinkers are going to want to know even more than that, but we can only put so much information. If you want to read like the full detail, go to our website. We show even more detail there. So with that was kind of the beginning, is like I want to build it as transparently as possible. And then that's when I started. I didn't know additives could be in tequila until we were well into starting the brand. So that was just also sort of luck that we found a producer that doesn't use additives. And we had enough of a palate to be like, damn, this stuff's really good. But Mr. Vivanco afforded me the opportunity to work with the master distiller, Sergio Cruz, to create our own unique recipes. And that's when I really started to learn about how tequila is produced. I brought in my friend Adam Fodor from the International Tequila Academy as a consultant. I was taking his classes, trying to learn more about all the facts and just really get up to speed on the book side of tequila. And I was like, Adam, I'm taking your classes, bro. I just emailed him. Would you be willing to help me through this process? Because I'm proficient in Spanish and Sergio Cruz doesn't speak English. And not only is there a language thing, we could translate that, but I need to learn, I need a real expert on my side to help coax it, because naturally there's going to be a bias from the distillery to produce it how they've always done it. And to kind of, every human, it's not something with them, it's every human's going to choose the path of least resistance unless forced a different direction. And so by bringing Adam in, it was like, all right, we can then now design our own unique profile. Adam has the academical knowledge to help us push the limits, and Sergio Cruz knows exactly the limitations of his equipment and his facility. And so we spent about 10 months to a year designing the base process map for our base Blanco, which is the base of everything. So with the cultural aspect, there's some really interesting stuff with tequila. So, that all the tequileros are descendants of the conquistadors. They're the original Spanish settlers of Mexico. So,
wow.
In a way, you could say they culturally appropriated the indigenous spirit. Yeah, you could follow they're all cousins if you go far enough back. That's why they've all been on their ranches since the 1500s. So there's a different element to that. Don't have to unpack all that on this episode, but there's something to ponder there. But that's why too in Los Altos the people are generally taller and more fair-skinned. And you even hear of blonde-haired folks in the Los Altos region of Jalisco because they're of direct Spanish descent. Wow. With little indigenous blood. But the Jaguar, in terms of Mesoamerican culture, predating modern Mexican culture, Mesoamerican culture would be the word that kind of describes the greater Latin America, mainly around Central America. And Mesoamerican history, you get into the Olmecs, which is one of the oldest civilizations we know of, and then you go into the Mayans, Aztecs, Zapotecs, and other great civilizations. There's evidence of the use of agave throughout those societies, and they certainly drank pulque, which is effectively an agave beer, right? Fermented agave. It's popular in Mexico City. But there's also more modern archaeological science that shows that they were distilling it. Because initially, we thought for a long time that the indigenous populations of Mesoamerica had pulque, The Spanish came over and they knew about rum and brandy, and they're like, hey, we want some rum and brandy. Why don't we just distill this shit, this pulque? And that became some of the first agave spirits. Turns out that's not probably how it started, that these indigenous populations going back thousands of years were actually using stills and were distilling using wooden reed-like stills and clay pots, like ancestral mezcal is produced. So the agave plant is obviously extremely important culturally within this region of the world. And then so too is the jaguar. So the jaguar is really, if you think about it, and I'll break it down for you, is the spirit animal of Mexico. Mm-hmm. It's not actually the eagle, and I'll explain why. It's because when you look at the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Zapotecs, they all worshipped jaguars. It was considered the deity in physical form in the world. And there's different varieties of how the jaguars worshipped and revered. But in the Mayan culture, the largest temple is the Gran Templo del Jaguar at Tikal in Guatemala. And the highest class of people in the Aztec society were the jaguar warriors. They were like the highest class, and they too worshipped the jaguar god. And they believed the jaguar could represent the transformation back and forth between the afterlife and the present.
Oh, wow.
And there were some, I'm not necessarily like a history buff on this, so don't quote me on this, go research it yourself, but also they believe that the pattern of the jaguar's fur could predict the future through celestial patterns, that it represented the sky and the stars. And there's carvings of like the kings of these societies and towns and various groups within the population wearing the hide of jaguar, and that the claws and teeth were used. So it's a extremely symbolic animal to Central America and to Mexico specifically. So by making that the symbol of our brand, while ours is based on modern science, and I'll get into that now, you're really tapping into some extremely deep cultural elements. And then just while we're on culture, kind of going off the conquistador thing a little bit, if you think about American culture, most of our culture is derived from little bits and pieces from other cultures. Mm-hmm. And I think most people overlook just the amount of influence that Mexican culture specifically has on our country. And I like to use this analogy. If you ask somebody to name the most American iconic motifs, you people say apple pie and baseball. That's a good one, right? Well, I would argue that definitely top 10, probably top 5 or 3 is the cowboy. I mean, like Europeans, Asians, people from all over the world really identify that imagery, symbolism to America. It's the cowboy hat, the cowboy boots, and the horses, the lassos, all that. 100% of that is all Mexican. That was all derived from areas around Jalisco. The charros were the first cowboys that came from Spain. They invented the sombrero, which is now the cowboy hat. They invented what we think of as the cowboy boots and spurs, the lasso as we know it. And the Europeans were introduced to that influence in Texas when we moved west. And now we've adopted it for our own, and it's become so iconic in our culture that it is one of the top symbols of American culture, and it's actually Mexican to begin with. So I emphasize that, one, just because the cultural thing is fluid, mm-hmm. especially when measured over large spans of time, but also that, especially politically, these days we really have this divide of literally with the wall and the border is such a topic. But Mexico is our closest ally, I believe, not only literally, but also culturally. There is no separating America from Mexico, the United States from Mexico, because culturally we are helix bound as one kind of DNA strand. And we don't like to think of it that way as Americans, but when you really start pulling back the layers of the onion, you start to see that that's true. So that also we see a play in tequila. Tequila is really, this is a controversial take. Here's a hot take. You say it's Mexican, I say it's arguably an American product. Mm. And the reason I say it is because 85% of the tequila produced in the world is consumed here in the United States of America.
Yep.
So with that, it's this really cool. I'm not trying to take it for ourselves, but I emphasize that we play this extremely important role in it. Similar, analogous to sherry over in Spain. Sherry's produced in Spain. Almost all of it is consumed in the United Kingdom. That's why there's same with port.
Yep.
And with tequila, there's a symbiotic relationship of the American consumer and the Mexican producer. And so in a way, it's a shared product. And it all comes back to I think culturally our countries are just helix bound into one thing. We always want to try to separate it, but you can't at so many different levels. And so, but to the Mexican culture, it's amazing. It's family oriented. Being from Tennessee in the South, I've found it very analogous to our Southern culture, with the family being at the center of everything. And when I first showed up, I had cowboy boots on, and I looked around and noticed all these dudes all have cowboy boots on, and they're wearing jeans too. And so there seemed to be an immediate cultural fit there. But in terms of kind of the paying respect to the modern Mexican culture, cultural appropriation, some of these hot topics today, we always give credit where credit's due. While I'm the brand owner and founder, I just helped push Sergio Cruz to create something that he's already doing. And it's his genius. I just was an outside influence that helped steer the ship in the direction that I thought would be really great and commercially viable for our purposes. But he's the artist. To be a distiller, especially at these kind of smaller tequila distilleries, it's this unique combination of science and art. Meaning it's all science, it's all chemistry, and it's math, right? But there's an art to it of I view the distillery almost like the organ or some huge instrument. And very few people are capable of playing that thing, especially well. And he's like a maestro. They call the master distiller a maestro tequilero. And we use that word maestro to mean, somebody extremely proficient, 1% of the 1% proficiency in something. And that's really fitting our connotation of that word for Sergio Cruz because he's that good. And the funny thing about you wouldn't think it when you meet him. He's so jovial and he's always making jokes and not serious in his kind of personality, but he's clearly a next level genius at this, because it's amazing. And then the Vivanco's property is so special because it yields such amazing agave. And our brand would be absolutely nothing without them. So we're all about, paying respect to them and really always giving credit to Sergio Cruz, but also within a lot of the other brands out of the distillery, I do feel like Sergio Cruz gets all the spotlight and just we're recorded, but somewhat hot take as well, as I feel like he's getting turned into a little bit of a caricature by some of our brands at our distillery in a way that I think discredits the maestro level genius of this person. It demystifies somebody and makes him seem more normal and approachable than he deserves to be revered as. And then secondly, I feel like not enough credit is given to Sergio Vivanco and his family with other brands. And we really focus on trying to highlight Sergio Vivanco because he used to be the master distiller. He had the wherewithal to bring in a younger, more talented master distiller. But it's really at the grand scale, it's all his vision, Sergio Vivanco's vision. And he's really the patriarch of this family that brings it all together. And so we always make sure to honor the family, the legacy of their ranch, the genius of Sergio Cruz, through everything we do.
Yeah, you can hear that. I mean, your knowledge for the history, your passion for the terroir, right? Their skills and what they do and what they build to craft something so delicious and unique. I mean, you can totally hear it in your response, and I have a huge, massive respect for that. That's fantastic. That's cool. Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely makes you a fan, makes you want to root for you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, you're just not throwing out a product in a bottle. You actually give a shit. And that's cool as hell, and that's what consumers, and that's why when I got excited when I had the opportunity to have you on, right? Because I'd done some research into you and listened to past episodes, and you had that sense about you in listening to those episodes, right? So getting a chance to have you highlight that a little bit deeper maybe on this episode, I really wanted to lean into that a little bit because I really respect what you're doing. And I'm excited for for not only this brand, but anything else you end up doing with Morningside as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But just a couple of fun factoids. Our package is made from 100% recycled materials. We've really befriended, like, to the next level, like best befriended our producers of all the dry goods too. So almost every liquor bottle out there on a shelf in the U.S. comes from India or China. Some of the really high-end stuff comes from Eastern Europe, but since the war from Ukraine, actually, and neighboring countries, that really has disrupted the Eastern European glass market, shifting even more market share to India and China. Produced in horrible conditions, sweatshop type labor, bad for the climate, bad for the people, and I'm not a big fan of the Chinese government, personally. So we wanted to find Mexican-produced materials, so I started meeting with local, and a lot of them are based in Guadalajara, not only because of its proximity to the tequila industry, but Guadalajara is one of the main manufacturing hubs of Mexico. Started meeting with dry goods producers, so that's glass stopper, label, seal boxes, because they're like, well, it would probably save money, too, if I got it produced here and didn't have to ship it across the damn Pacific Ocean. And then met an amazing guy named Andres, who owns Andres Hernandez, and he owns Fusion y Formas, which is a recycled glass factory. And I was like, well, that'd be really cool if our bottle would be recycled, because that fits the ethos of us walking the walk. And this is only 80 to 85 miles away from the distillery, so it's local. I think it could be good for business. It's going to cut down on my logistics costs. It's going to be better in terms of carbon footprint. It's going to fit better within the story and narrative of the brand. And then after those meetings, after we kind of selected the glass is sort of the canvas of where it all begins. You kind of have to first pick the shape of your bottle, because then the whole design of the rest of the package is going to be, shaped, pun intended, I guess, by that. And then I was like, well, where can I buy stoppers, seals, boxes? And he's like, well, you happen to be at the right place, because we also own a stopper factory, a box factory.
Meant to be.
Yeah, and so we source all of our components there. And then I was like, well, if we got recycled glass, can we get a recycled cork stopper? And he's like, yeah, actually, we make one of those. And we had one designed for our bottle.
That's awesome.
And then I was like, all right, what about label? Like, it'd be really cool to do recycled paper. And he's like, we actually have this new product. I'll do you one better. I was like, what's that? He goes, we have recycled agave fiber paper. Wow. And I was like, hell yeah, let's see what that looks like. And then I was like, man, that fits it perfectly, because I was looking for earthen tone and not like a stark white in the paper. And then the box, I was like, can we do a recycled cardboard box? He's like, actually, our box factory is 100% recycled cardboard. I was like, you must be a real environmentalist. And he's like, I guess it's just cheaper to do it this way. And which I love, because I love when business aligns with the environment. Yeah. And good sustainable business practices, oftentimes when you really peel it back, the right way is the right way for a reason to do something.
Yeah.
And so anyway, then we became the first liquor brand to do 100% recycled packaging. I make that claim. I don't know it to be. I believe it to be true. I don't know it to be true, but I'm going to claim it until somebody tells me they were first.
Well, you are a lawyer, so
100% recycled packaging material. Every component sourced within 85 miles, and I guarantee, if you bring on anybody to the show and you ask them who makes the glass bottle, who makes the label stoppers, not who did you buy it from, who brokered it to you, makes it. Can you name the company, and can you name the person who owns that company? Or they're not going to be able to answer that.
No, they're not. They're not.
So we're tight. We hang out. We go to dinner every time I'm in town. We're boys. I actually had to reschedule a catch-up call with him to do this.
Oh, dude, thank you. Tell him I told him that. Tell him I let say thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is going. My wife gave me the go-ahead, so we don't have to cut it off.
Oh, he's got permission from the boss.
So when you talk about the bottle, right, you shared a lot about the culture, the history, the bottle, the sustainability, right, which is all, from a consumer's perspective, I think amazing, and I think it should draw more people to the brand more, right? In 10 years from now, somebody picks up this bottle. Somebody comes to my house. I have 15 of these because I just keep buying them and storing them and hoarding them, right? Or somebody gets introduced to the brand 10 years from now, right? What are you hoping that they feel when they taste it, when they pick up this bottle, when they learn the history behind it? What are you hoping they feel 10 years from now?
Shoot, I don't know. A high quality product, transparently done with the cause. Our goal is to donate 10% of our profits to jaguar conservation. Now we're working with even more groups than the Northern Jaguar Project. Ideally, it started with conservation, but we're a tequila brand first. So ideally, it needs to be in hierarchy, high quality product, made with integrity, transparency, with a really cool, amazing cause behind it. That's what it's all about.
That's cool.
Hopefully they still think that 10 years from now, hopefully even 10 years, we've scaled a lot, but we've maintained the integrity of the product. Something we're very cognizant of and talk about is how are we going to continue to scale and maintain liquid quality. Where we are today, we're not really anywhere close to running up against those issues, but when we dream and build Excel forecasts, like, wow, these numbers start to get pretty big. Anybody can build a really cool pro forma. Executing that plan's a whole different thing, but how we maintain that through the scale. And the big goal for me is to endow the Northern Jaguar Reserve with proceeds from this brand and do a lot of cool, fun stuff along the way.
That's cool. When you think about Morningside, right, you talk about you can hear your passion in the conservation part of it, the sustainability part of it, right? Do you see, and you may not know, but what are your thoughts, right? If you're going to continue to build other brands under the Morningstar logo or under the Morningstar brand umbrella, are you going to try to make them like purpose-driven spirits? Is this a one-off for you? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we have another brand actually already. It's called Waymar Gin House. It's our gin brand. It's an American-style gin. Give it a search. And we have other brands in concept. So the big vision is we're trying to build a Morningside is the street I grew up on. When coming up with the company name, I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to just do one brand. And I know I've always envisioned building a portfolio of premium brands. I had all these like cool Latin names like Diageo. That's the biggest company in our space. They combined Dia and Geo, the earth and sky, because they're going to dominate the world, into their name. And I was like, I need to come up with like a badass, Greek or Latin name. And I did. I came up with a bunch of them. And my wife was like, you're a effing loser. These is like, I explained it and she's like, you're such a dork. Like nobody what? And I was like, I guess it's actually not that cool. She's like, no. And I had like a whole list, and she's like, what about Morningside? That's the street you grew up on. Go with that. It's got a good ring to it. She's like, and I was like, yeah, she's probably right. And it represented a lot to me at the time because I needed a new beginning starting this. And Morningside, it's like a new beginning, a new start. It sounded kind of like a corporate name, like a corporate holding company name, and it had a good feel to it. I had some other names that had like more like dominating and being, like I had one that was like all about like revenge, and it's like those are terrible names. Definitely don't go that route. Morningside, light, airy, fun. And the street I grew up on with some history and some fun facts are really, really, really early in his career, before he became the Fred Smith we know today. Fred Smith happened to live on my street, and he's the founder and CEO of FedEx. And then by sheer coincidence, when I was in college, my favorite entrepreneur of all time had to get an organ transplant and came here to Memphis to do so, and ended up living on the street for a couple of years, and his name was Steve Jobs. So,
wow.
Street, and he chose our street, because it's a nice street, but it's not like the nicest area of town by any means. It's a nice old street, but he chose it because it was like undescript, like not the area where people would think he would be, because everybody at the time knew he had come to Memphis for this procedure in recovery time. And I was like, okay, that's got a cool ring to it, because like the greatest entrepreneur from here is Fred Smith. My favorite entrepreneur of all time had this pure weird, it's a 22 house little cove, so it's kind of random that he happened to live there. So it's like there's some good pedigree that's come from this. Maybe that can rub off on me a little bit. That's the genesis of the name. And the vision is just building premium, amazing spirits with authenticity, integrity, and story. Not everyone keeps trying to pigeonhole me into doing everything about the environmental thing. I'm really passionate about that, but I'm passionate about the Jaguar conservation because it's my uncle's life's work. I think I'm more passionate about that aspect of it. And then from that, I've now gotten just like so into it that it's like a part of me now. With Waymar, there's not a environmental component. It's just about producing a really high quality gin. We use recycled glass, recycled cardboard boxes. The present label's not recycled. The stopper is recycled, so it's everything but the label is recycled. We embody a lot of those principles because it's good for marketing, it's good for the brand, and we believe in it. But also sometimes it's just like more efficient to do it that way. So we use the same glass factory, box factory, stopper factory in Mexico for the gin. We have a couple of other brands. I have a whiskey concept we're working on that has I'll tell it to y'all first.
Breaking news.
It's called Duck Club Bourbon.
Okay.
It'll be hopefully releasing this fall, if not in 2026. It is all about waterfowl and wetland conservation. My earliest memories were duck hunting with my dad in Tennessee, and I think it's, if you look at the demographics of bourbon consumer, that culture around waterfowling and duck hunting really embodies a lot of the ethos of Americana and bourbon. And no one's surprisingly ever done it. Interestingly, wild turkey, the genesis of that was from a turkey hunting trip in South Carolina. And so I'm in Memphis. Memphis is sort of right outside of duck capital of the world in Arkansas and Mississippi. And Ducks Unlimited's based here. So we're going to do a really cool bourbon brand. So the goal is to build a really kick-ass portfolio across spirit categories. It's clear right now that the tequila is always going to be the anchor of this portfolio. But like y'all, I mean, this is a fun one because most of these I do are just tequila-focused podcasts. I like nice spirits.
Yep. Right
now, I pretty much only drink tequila. Drink some gin as well because of the gin brand. But I've gotten so crazy. I'm now like a crazy tequila geek. And I've gotten so into it that I just drink I drink tequila and I drink wine with my wife and dinner and stuff. And I'm on the board of a wine company out of Argentina.
Wow.
So we drink a lot of wine. And I love a good gin cocktail, but I also love a great bourbon. I kind of boycotted bourbon for a few years out of whatever, but I'm getting back into it. And yeah, it's just fun. So I'm a history kind of geek too, as you can tell. I love brands. I love culture. I love the experience of it. And if we can create multiple different spirit brands, it's going to lead to a lot of fun adventure and travel. But there's just so much to unravel in all this that just keeps you engaged mentally, emotionally, with the cultures of these various spirits and where they come from and how they're made. So it's a fun business, and with scale, it can be a profitable one too. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird how I ended up here in this space, but I love it.
Yeah, no, I love your passion for it. And I think John and I have similar journeys. John, you started with bourbon, and then how'd you dovetail into tequila? What path did you go?
This is actually a good segue into a question that I had for you when you started speaking about other spirits. So I noticed, and so what specific year did you launch the Alma del Jaguar?
2023, May of 2023. So it's only been 2 years.
And that's what I was going to say. A couple of years ago, I'm a pro member for Bourboner Sealbox. I have spent a small fortune on Sealbox, and I distinctly remember seeing your brand pop up, the Jaguar, the tequila. But back then, I wasn't drinking tequila, so I wasn't interested in buying it. Now, here recently, thanks to Jason here, I've gotten more into it. But I'm assuming that relationship stemmed from your previous ties with Blue Note. You were on Sealbox for that. Am I correct in that?
So Blake, the owner of Sealbox, Blake Reber, is a buddy. He's based in Jacksonville. Okay. He owns Sealbox out of D.C. We'd done a bunch of barrel picks. I sold him a bunch of bulk barrels of bourbon at one point for a client that needed a private label. And actually, I stand corrected. We call our launch in May of 2023, but Blake at Sealbox actually was the first person to release the product in the country, and that was in April of 2023. And Blake is awesome, a huge supporter, and to help me out, he placed a unreasonably large opening order at the time to be like, hey man, I believe in you, want to support. I think he took in like 200 cases, and normal order would have been 10. So thanks, big shout out to Blake for having my back, because those initial orders turn over the cash flow that allow you to reinvest and grow, and are really critical early on. Blake's the man. Really cool guy, family guy. And then it's kind of funny because he's from Jacksonville and a diehard Jaguars fan. So he's like, yeah, I'm down because it's the Jaguar.
Jaguar.
They're not helping you out. I just love Jaguars, bro. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to say to make me feel like you're not doing me a favor.
Hands down, I know what the title of the episode needs to be: serendipity or serendipitous, one or the other, because this whole episode is about serendipity. I mean, everything was just meant to be. I mean, I have a mini Jaguar in my lap right now. I mean, look at this guy.
Yeah, I started in bourbon myself, then moved to rum, dove headfirst into rum, and then started to search for something, other things, because rum, I got into my niche. I felt like I knew what I liked palate-wise, and then I started exploring tequila, and it was introduced to me at a bar up in Syracuse, New York. Bartender said, hey, if you ever had, it was Jose Cuervo de la Familia Extra Añejo. She's like, you ever tried tequila? And I'm like, not since I was in high school. I'm like, what do you got? And she poured it for me. Mind blown. And ever since then, it's fallen down that rabbit hole. And now it's expanded into mezcal as well. Like, I have this huge appreciation now, even from mezcal too. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So quality stuff, like you're saying, right? Premium brand, premium spirits, best quality that you can get, right? And I think that's where myself and a lot of other consumers are right now, and what we're looking for. Whatever spirit space we're in, we just know that we want the transparency, we want the quality behind it, and if you continue down that path, I guarantee you, just listening to you, you're going to be wildly successful.
And that was one thing I wanted to mention as well, is when I seen your brand on Sealbox, I knew I could trust that it was additive free because it was on Sealbox.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to promote anything that's not.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, they're pretty solid. Let me ask you. I want to be respectful of your time too. So let me ask you just a few more questions here. Right? Most brand builders are obsessed over like what's next. Right? You're always thinking about what's next and thing. What's something you have right now you're trying to savor and appreciate?
If you came into my office or listen to my meetings with my team, all you're going to hear about is what's next. Because it's a business at the end of the day. I feel like too many of these like interviews are about like the origin story, and you just like repeat this one moment in time in the past, and it's really like my day to day is I live in spreadsheets and contracts on the phone with distributors and retailers, negotiating price and incentives and discount allowances, and the way the shit actually works, not the romanticized notion that the collector has of how it works. So I'm focused on what next because we're trying to drive to, profitability and growth, and because I love just dreaming up brand concepts. I mean, I can sit and dream up brand concepts all day long. Man, like people always ask me which one of my. It's sort of another way of asking, like which ones like that you've already produced is like your favorite, and if like. To me, it's our Blanco and our Repo. It's sort of a hybrid because I'm sipping the Blanco right now, and I actually just thought after coming off I'm like, single barrel, I'm like, damn, this is really, really good Blanco. That was like I thought that I had it. Sometimes you forget just exactly how good it is. But I typically drink my Blanco in a ranch water, or just like I just do sparkling water like Topo Chico, or my wife always has LaCroix. Even just like a plain LaCroix is pretty darn good, and cheap. And that's a way that you can turn a Blanco and I don't add any. If I'm feeling fancy, I'll do we call it the Jaggin soda, which is just an orange peel. No actual sugar, just the essence, a little hint. But most of the time I'm just drinking it without any fruit garnish or anything. And I feel like it's a great cocktail because the fizzy water turns it into a cocktail that helps you kind of pace yourself. It's great for, the pool or the lake or the beach or whatever, or if you're a golfer or whatever, great cocktail for kind of the daytime. So light, no sugar, but you still taste the agave. You still taste the tequila. You just added sparkling water. That's how I drink that. I savor those. Probably don't. I don't know that I savor those. I probably down those pretty fast. But the Repo I'm really proud of because that's in their aged categories is where I've had I think the most influence because I'm bringing that barrel maturation expertise from the bourbon world into tequila. So the Repo is definitely something I'm really, really proud of. It's taken us a minute to dial that in. The way agave spirits interacts with oak is so different than a whiskey or grain-based spirit. And so some of our initial batches, I'll be the first to say, we're a little over-oaked on our Repo. And our later batches, we've really kind of dialed it in, kind of learned the reins of how to control it. And we were okay with the first batches being over-oaked on our Repo because we didn't have an añejo. So the Repo initially kind of had to kind of play that hybrid Repo/añejo drinker to be able to play both palates. But now that we have our añejo, it's worked out because we've learned how to dial the oak back on the Repo and make it kind of the perfect in-between. Those are the two I savor. Man, I can just ramble on and on. So what's next is I will tell you what's next is we have an exotic casks finish series.
Oh, now we're talking.
This is where the current 4 products are the mainstay, the driver of the business, but the next shit is where stuff's going to get really, really cool in the LTO space, the limited time offerings. And so we are doing our Barricas series, which is añejo all aged in exotic casks, some of which have never been done before in tequila. That'll be coming out this fall. It's if you like tannin and like the aged expressions, like añejos, reposados, or have like that bourbon kind of palate, I'm gonna blow some people's minds with some of this stuff. And that's one because we sourced some really badass barrels, and then also just again back to Sergio and Mr. Ivanka is just the distillate's so freaking good. But we have some really cool ones. I will share one that I'm the most proud of, which is our Japanese Mizunara Oak Añejo. Will be the first Añejo ever released, aged exclusively in virgin Mizunara.
Wow. Tequila
Dragones, Casa Dragones, excuse me. They did a Repo finished with used Mizunara. I think they just used staves. I don't know that to be true, but it was a Repo. That's what we do now. And I don't think it was a virgin Mizunara barrel. Ours is añejo and will be aged 18 months in virgin Mizunara. Mizunara cask like the Ferrari or Lamborghini of barrels. And it is particularly badass product. Like it's because it's so crazy how some of this stuff like embodies where it came with the terroir. Like you think about Japanese culture, and I think like extremely sophisticated, yet so elegant in its simplicity, in like subtleness and humility, right? These are kind of things that describe Japanese culture, which makes it so compelling. And I'll be damned if that doesn't come through from the effing trees that grow there. Like that's like the flavor it yields. It's like so infinitely complex, but yet subtle, soft, and humble. I sound like one of these wine geeks, but it really is. It was like when we tasted it, you're like, this is insane because it tastes like it came from Japan, and I've never even been to Japan, but it tastes like everything I know about the culture and all the Japanese cuisine I've ever had at like a really authentic Japanese restaurant in New York City or something. So that one's going to be really cool.
That is cool, man. It's cool that you're branching out and doing different things like that, right? For the consumer, for our side, right? That's really interesting because it gives us something new to look forward to, something new to try, something to expand our palates into something we've never tried before. I mean, I would have never even thought you could do that stuff. So it's kind of cool that you're able to do that too.
I'm just sitting here thinking I need to practice on how I pronounce Mizunara because if Blaine comes to Central Georgia, I'm going to go where he's at when he's selling this stuff, and I'm going to help him out.
Blaine just slacked me. How was it? I'm still on.
Hey, Jason.
4 minutes.
Jason will tell you, if I'm involved, you better set some time aside.
Well, hey, let me go through some rapid fire with you, McCauley, just to have some fun, and then we'll close it out for you so you can get back to your family and everything. So a different segment I want to try today. I got a couple of them. So build or break. So what I'm going to do is name a trend or a practice in the spirits world, right? You tell me your opinion, whether you continue to build on it or break it and why.
Does break just mean like not participate, or do I have to like
dump the damn thing? Who cares?
Okay,
Whatever.
let's
Tell
go.
them, like, who cares, right? Celebrity backed spirits.
So I think there's an opportunity for that to change, and here's what it is instead of celebrity like George Clooney and his friends or some celebrity went down to Mexico, we all know that didn't actually happen, right? Type story of using celebrities to endorse a product like a commercial, like when you see Peyton Manning on TV. Like, you know damn well he didn't create Papa John's or Shaq, but it's fun to have them endorse it. I think that's where we need to get back to is celebrities endorsing products in that sense, which to me, in its lack of authenticity, is more authentic than them trying to make up like that Jenner Kardashian had anything to do with producing the damn tequila. Yeah. Like, we all know that didn't happen. And so if she just was like, this is my favorite tequila and just doing commercials for it, that's how the world works.
Yeah, we all have favorites. That's fair. Non-transparency.
Sorry?
Non-transparency.
Keep going. You know, one thing that I don't think people realize is the nom is only, in terms of on the bottle, is only who bottled it. Like, the Tequila Geek hadn't even gotten there yet on social media. I am so over the whole additive-free thing. Like, it's all anybody wants to talk about. It's, like, great. But let's break down some real shit. Who's sourcing juice and who's not?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's something that you know what, you spark a thought, because you're right. I haven't even thought about that, because you don't see that anywhere on the bottles, or that transparency's not there yet. Which you
hadn't been exposed yet. Nobody even knows that you could do that.
You beg for it.
That's a whole separate episode.
Yeah, we'll unwrap that later.
Yeah.
Bottle collecting culture.
You know, like it helps our business, right? But break in the sense that, like, to me, our products are all meant to be consumed and shared. We don't put out collector pieces. Yeah, maybe we will do something that's like really cool, but we'll make it like for charity, for the reserve or something that we do in some crazy something, because it's all about the money going back. But yeah, drink it, crack them open and drink it.
That's good. No, and
on that note though, I will say that when you mentioned that earlier about in 10 years, my thing is, in 10 years, I'm gonna still have this empty. I'm not throwing it out, because this guy's clearly driven and he's going places and he's doing things. And I want to say, I bought a bottle when he started this. This was the first company. This was the first one. And I want to say that I had a bottle when he started it, because in 10 years from now, man, sky, ceiling. I mean, he's going places.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, I have my own little collection, but it's like 6 to 10 bottles, so that I actually am not planning on it, because there's like a story behind it. Because like I have a great Dia de los Muertos from when I was at El Pendio, and I bought it from Felipe there. And I'm like, it's not because of the bottle that I like hunted down. It's because of that memory and how freaking cool that was. Sort of, I mean, thank you for that. But sort of to that point, there's like a story behind it, or a reason you have it, not just like, oh, this is some rare bottle that I don't have any connection to.
And the absolute genius, let me just make sure to say that, the absolute genius of the Jaguar and calling this Nocturna with the dark label. Yeah. I don't know who done that, but genius.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think too, I was brought into this whole entire spirits thing with sharing, right? I remember my first time meeting my friends. Somebody gave me a pour of Blanton's Gold and a single thing, right? And for somebody who's just getting into that, I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. But then everything from my little group of friends that I have, we all have our own little niches in places, and we share bottles, we share samples, we give that. So like Saturday, I'm having a bunch of people over. I got one guy who brings Irish. I got one guy who brings Scotch. I got another guy who brings Cachaca and rum. I'm going to have all the tequila and mezcal out, 'cause that's my new thing. So it is very much an important part of this industry, and I think this sharing culture is that we don't just sit on bottles.
Collect to share or to open for a future occasion. Yeah. Like, collect a bottle because you're going to open it on some special anniversary, or with some friend that lives a long way when you connect. Don't collect I am super over this whole collecting, reselling on like Facebook bullshit. Like that is lame.
We're raising the roof on that one for sure. All right, 3 more. Influencer marketing. And you're not going to hurt our feelings if you say this is all bullshit. Like, I mean, it's fair.
No, I mean, it's a very core part of our strategy. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting how it's developed, but that's a if you look at all the data, everybody's learning new information online, on their phone, on social media. I think maybe having a little more guardrails on just because somebody says they're an expert in something doesn't mean they actually are. I don't love some of that components, but I do think overall the folks that I've met in kind of the influencer world is they're in it for the right reasons. I've not met too many that I thought were like in it for the wrong reasons.
That's
so.
good.
What was the opposite of break? Keep.
Yeah. What was it? I'm still learning. Build on it. Continue building on it.
Build on it. We're going to build on it because we're going to build a little more transparency and flesh out who's real, who's not.
That's cool. Another interesting one that I know is big in my daily job, tech and spirits, AI, anything like that. Are you guys doing anything in that space? And is it valuable to you guys, or is that something that has no value to you guys? So you do build on it or break it?
Help me write a letter of recommendation or something, but I don't really use it at all because I've not found how to use it. But it does help sometimes when we come up with a new concept to have AI do like help with like a mood board or something. That's like when we talk with our graphic designer to help translate the thoughts up here into like, this isn't what I'm thinking, but this is like the direction. Like use this for inspiration. I think there's a lot that can be used there. I mean, there's no question it's the future. The world's largest supercomputer is based right here in Memphis.
Oh, is it? I didn't even know
XAI,
that.
doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But build on it. Got to. I mean, that's the wave. I'm not about denying the change of the future.
That's cool. Okay. Closing reflections. As you look ahead, what does success look like for Morningside Brands 5 years from now? And how is that maybe different than how success looked like for you when you first launched?
I don't know that it's changed. I mean, at the end of the day, we are a business, and success for us is about achieving shareholder liquidity, and that's not necessarily through some bad motive or something, but people have invested. We've only raised money from family and friends, and I want our business to be a success and be able to repay them the investment they've made with us. And for the brands too, it's not just about making a buck. It's about them like being lasting brands. And for me, the coolest thing about creating a brand is it's your little baby, but eventually it develops its own personality and goes off into the world and gets used and developed and develops this kind of personality, and people interact with it in a way you never even thought or realized, and it becomes way bigger than you and the team. And my hope is that our brands are like will one day be considered legacy brands and have been around and are established, and that I can one day repay those that trusted me and gave me a chance when I was at my lowest point in my career. That's success for me.
That's awesome. All right, John, closing thoughts from your side first.
Bro, I'm absolutely. I was already a fan. I was a fan of Blue Note. Like I don't know how many bottles of that I got, and I'm so much a bigger fan now. Just hearing you, you are such an inspiration because you're clearly driven. And one of my things has always been, if you have whatever the backstory, the whatever the charitable, whatever that is, you first have to be a business and you have to be profitable, because whatever the charitable drive is can't exist without the profits. And I love the fact that you actually espouse that. And like I say, it's just such an inspiration. And I'm like, dude, I'm rooting for you so hard. I'll be your biggest fan from here forth.
Thank you. I'm all about, I'll tell you, Blaine will attest it too. I'm an open book, man. I don't have a whole lot to hide here. We're just calling it as we see it.
Yeah. No, and man, McCauley, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate the transparency. I have a really good sense of your leadership qualities, right? And what your drive is to put a quality product out there for the consumer, with a conservation focus on it, right? And not losing sight of that. But also then building something that's going to help to sustain your future, your family's future, your legacy, even beyond that, and your family's legacy as well. And not only yours, but also the families that you're then working alongside, right? Your family's in Mexico at the distilleries, your family's at the packaging place, like all of those people, you're making an impact to them. And I certainly tell you, I'm inspired by what I've heard today. I certainly appreciate you coming on. I was floored when I even had the potential of this opportunity to get to talk to you. I really honestly can't thank you enough for the time you spent with me with us tonight. And I look forward to more from you, talking to you more, and connecting with you more. So thank you very much for everything you've done for us tonight. And I wish you all the best.
Oh, man, thank you. I just appreciate the opportunity to come on. You're thanking me, but the irony is, like, we can't build our brand without folks like you to help share the message. So the pleasure is all mine. And, thanks for affording us the opportunity to get on here and talk and be transparent and share a story.
All right. Before we wrap up this episode, I want to give some shout outs to supporters of the channel. Mike over at the Whiskey Morgue podcast. Go check him out. Sean and Justin, Smoke and Sounds podcast. Rob and Big Al, the Lounge Life podcast, and then Jim and Lindsay over at the Children of the 80s podcast. Some followers that I really could not do without you guys. John, Mr. Given on Instagram. Kyle, Nerds and Burbs on Instagram. Michael, Pints, Pipes, and Drams on Instagram. Logan at 2_cigar on Instagram. And finally, Adrian, Planet Mezcal on Instagram. Thank you guys all so much for your support. I wouldn't be here without you guys, so very much appreciate it. So that's a wrap on this episode of the Dram Amateur Podcast. A huge thank you to McCauley Williams for joining the podcast, and to all of you for tuning in, sipping along, and being part of this amazing community. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to like, share, and leave a review. It helps me grow and reach more spirit lovers like you. You can also follow me on Instagram at Dram_amateur for updates, behind the scenes content, and more. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to keep sharing this journey with you. So until next time, remember, life's too short for bad pours, so make every dram count. Cheers. Thank you for tuning into the Dram Amateur Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of spirits. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I certainly appreciate all the feedback and support. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes as we continue our exploration of bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, mezcal, and beyond. Cheers, and until next time, keep savoring every sip.